it's good to sometimes discuss with people who have had position in different countries. What I've seen in my career is that it's very nice to speak about being international, but having lived internationally, having had a job in various countries or with various culture in various countries, it really helps into bringing an understanding of the environment that we're in. From my perspective, the first time I went, I never worked in my home country, but when I went into another country, which was different culturally and also in terms of the size of the company I was in and my role, before I was managing director of a small entity and went into a much larger company in a different country, which was a very shocks for me. And although I never accepted it at the time, it was a hard learning curve, but also it shaped me in the person I am today. And funnily enough, the gentleman who brought me in Munich, it was very tough. It was more mentor than boss, but it was very, very tough and strong, and gave me a very positive hard time. So sometimes we say feedback's a gift. That sometimes it was a bit sour gift, but it was always very interesting for me to take that. Not interesting always, but sometimes it was hard. But afterwards, I found very interesting for me, very growth oriented for me. It shaped me in the person I am today, and it didn't shape me as a person only, but also shaped me as a leader. It gave me many more weapons, ability to transform my speech, ability to for instance, create a real storyline, be much more attractive in the way I speak to people, to an audience, or to a board, which I believed I had before, but only one-sided. And there it brought me a much wider array of competencies. And this, for instance, in terms of leadership, is so important. If one-sided leader, I think they miss the point of many opportunities. They also miss the point of better leading people. And it's about being able to change the personality, the style of leadership. That leads us to a discussion we also had a while back. Was is today a different style of leadership required, or is today simply a continuation of the leadership that style that we've seen over the last 10 years, which is much more encompassing, much more open, leading to taking care of people, being as well as an assertive boss, a coach, a mentor, or what's in, or something that's in between.
Well, François, I think first you are super happy that you had that type of mentorship. So super lucky, because that is not what often is happening. So saying that, you had that experience with somebody who helped shaping you and shaping your leadership, it's a gift. And unfortunately, I didn't experience that very often in my career. I experienced this one or twice, but that's really a gift. And because I had that gift once or twice, I try to give it further, to the younger generations, to be the mentor I sometimes lacked in my career. Because it's, as you say, I think leadership is evolving. It's very situational. So what we need to do now as leaders in this very changing environment and in this very, very tough environment is very much different from what it was maybe in the 80s, in the 90s, where really the focus was very much on well-being, on integration, on inclusion. Now it's much more tough. The situations also from the competitive situation, it's much tougher environment. So we evolve leadership.
We do, and yes, the environment changed. I take sometimes comfort in reading about the history. It's not always the leader in the business, but the leadership has always existed. Competition always existed. And there's been a moment in my career and where I've seen, this is a more the leader needs to be harder. And in different times of my career, I found that the leaders needed or were in a much more inclusive. I wonder if today's time, with all the uncertainty on geopolitical level, in the economical level as well, the competition in the economy is not. We don't compete only for our own company. We compete also within an ecosystem where we have some form of adversary, competitors, but also our ecosystem is also being competed with by other ecosystems. So from far away, we're here in Germany or in Europe, the US ecosystem is very much integrated with the European one, but also competing completely in terms of the business we're in and the energy level, the geopolitical level, and all the elements that we need to take into consideration to reassure the shareholders, to reassure the employees, while still pushing harder and for competition. This is, I find, an enormous challenge. But I wonder if that challenge evolved so much since the past, or is simply the parameters of the environment that give us a different, feeling of where we evolve.
I think, what I feel is that the narrative changed, the communication changed. So I think performance was always important, and because we are working in companies, so of course competition, as you said, always existed. Performance is necessary and has to be cultivated, high performance culture. But now what I feel is that the conversation, the narrative, the communication is much more assertive. And what I'm thinking is that, as you said, in this time of uncertainty, I think people look for clarity. And then when you come as a leader with a very assertive, communication style, that might be a plus for the people to understand that they have a leadership, because everything is so uncertain and everything is so volatile.
Yeah.
So that I think is changing. And also what I think is changing, I don't know if you have noticed in the latest, when you hear to some leaders, not only European, but also European, especially in US, but also Europeans, as they try to downplay, the diversity topic, they downplay the inclusion topic, they downplay well-being, they even close well-being programs. And that, for me is you have to be very careful, because we all know that performance is fueled and driven by engagement. So we need to make sure that our people remain engaged. And then, of course, well-being is not everything. I think recognition, for instance, success is very engaging. But you need also, you cannot do it on the on risking the people's health. And, so some kind of well-being needs to be embedded together with success, together with results, in order to make sure that the people remain engaged. So I think it's a tricky topic, and a fine line we have to go now. Yeah. I don't know if you have experienced that.
No, I've experienced, of course. The companies I was with were very much into well-being, integration, equality, social responsibility. And that's where I worked for. But also my job when I was in a big German group was also to help other companies, larger companies, to protect their employees. So it was about insurance. But insurance is not only about when it's big corporation, they don't say, I pay you money and there's a problem, you pay something back. Because otherwise it's purely transactional.
Yes.
And you're just not as good as the other one. So what do you bring on top on the table in terms of service, risk management, know-how, etc.? And what I found was the well-being topic was always so important at the time of the tender, was very important at the time of the finalist presentation. What kind of service do you provide? in terms of who's paying for it was always a big discussion. So there were companies that were the forefront, and the Swiss multinational or American at the time, American multinational, but also the Brits, they were very pushy towards, I want this service included. There has to be a price. We understand that. It shouldn't be over the top, but must be included. There were other companies that were like, okay, it's very nice, you've said it in the presentation, but at this stage, we don't care about that. We don't even want the service. Just make sure that it's the transaction happens, and it was purely price sensitive. So there's an American company that, to contradict myself, a big IT company there for many years, they would change their contract, their global contract for a few dollars. They wouldn't care about what the service is. But others, they were so adamant, and we needed to transform our offer to be able to offer special service for their employees. It's pretty transgender at the time, or gender reassignment. We needed to create a completely new product for them at global level because they wanted to support that in their workforce. So to your point, do I see that there are companies that are much more assertive today? Yeah, I believe so. Do I think that is going to change the evolution? I don't think so. I think that the more assertive management style is just become louder today.
Yeah.
And because there is there's less politically correct approach. So there has to be a debate. But I'm convinced that companies that are inclusive, look for sustainability, will remain so.
I agree with you. I think also that is definitive the direction. But as you said, the communication and the narrative is different, and it's very loudly, sometimes to be very also provocative. I want to pick up on something you said, which I feel is very interesting, how different the companies look at what service they want to provide. And in the end, if I understand right, I mean, you are the expert of insurance, and I definitively am not. But as I understand it, that is very much linked to how, as a company, you want to manage risk. Because that's no insurance. I insure myself against a risk. So risk, outside risk, but also risk inside with the people, with the employees, Yeah. So I think it's interesting how different companies look at risk and how they manage risk. And you could see that directly in, how they were approaching your services, because I understand that you could provide a lot of services, even if it comes, of course, to a higher cost. But they were just not interested. So how they approach then the risk, because if they are not paying or for the services, they go higher risk, I guess, when things are happening. So that's interesting. In my case, as I all my life I worked with technology companies, the risk is in the product. So that's also a lot of risk management, but it's more about the quality of the product and the services, because otherwise you could damage your employees or somebody else's employees. So that is, a different angle on risk. But yes, coming back to what we said, the direction, I think it's also to keep your people engaged, and well-being programs are part of that engagement for sure.
Yeah. There's something about the insurance industry, just to jump on what you just said. The insurance industry is basically managing risk, whether it's outside or inside. So the insurer will take a risk of a certain a company or a certain population and cover it, so that you carry the risk. But you want to, of course, optimize your profit, and you want to optimize the outcome for the client. So what you're going to do is, for optimizing your profit and the outcome for the client, you're trying to diminish the risk for the client as much as possible, so help the client to be as less risky as possible. And then you as an insurer, you say, okay, so now if I pay less, then there's more money for the shareholders or more service or so. And so that's one element of the risk. Then you can also help those companies who are your client to manage the risk better themselves, not only decreasing the risk, but also helping them to be better risk manager for the product or their workforce. I was more on the workforce side, and that's why well-being is so important. Now, sometimes you see things that are so dramatically counterintuitive, because you say, okay, you know what? You're a bit overweight, not you, but to a person, you're a bit overweight. Why don't you just go and do a bit more sport? Go and jog. Yeah. So he's going jogging, slips, breaks the leg, more cost. Just like, yeah. Or he had a weak heart, he has a heart attack, and then there is. So this is all about understanding not only one part of the risk, but the whole sets of risks. And as insurer, we are used to managing risks. So that's our day-to-day life for clients and for our own project, our own people. Because the insurance company, the value of an insurance company is, of course, the level of the clients, but also it's their people. If we don't have competent people within the office, then we cannot provide the right service to client. And if the more we are competent as a company, the better we can provide the right service at the right level of price to the right client. And that's very exciting. Now, I read also a lot of fear about AI. And maybe people thought at the beginning AI is just a simple tool to so that we can, optimize a bit our home or the way we interact with the internet. But that's not the case at all. I mean, AI has been there for a long time. It's been helping improving the companies. I believe in the electricity or electric industry has been there for such a long time and been improving, and it's probably created competitive advantage already 10, 15, 20 years ago. But for the general public, it's much more recent, and there's much more fear because it's so much spoken about and so much faster than anything that we've seen.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, it doesn't eliminate people. It creates much more the need of competent people to work with AI to deliver the right service for our clients. So it leads me to data, because AI will optimize the way is optimizing the way we're using data, and therefore creating that positive cycle I was mentioning earlier. So I find that very exciting. And I'm not afraid at all. I'm just curious about the future on this in terms of governance, risk management. It creates many more challenges. I'm sure you have plenty.
Oh, you said some very interesting things here. Of course, I'm not afraid either, and I'm very curious. But you said competence, and I want to pick up on that one, because especially now we talk leadership in difficult times, in uncertainty. I think competence is extremely important, and it's important for the risk management. So if you have competent people, if you have competent leaders, of course, the risk will be better managed. I'm absolutely convinced about that. And to remain competent, of course, you need also to pick up on the new technologies. So, of course, AI being now the new technology, of course, you, as a leader, you need to pick up and to be good in managing it in order to remain competent. And you're right what you said, because in our industry, in electrical electronic industry, in digital industry, we had the machine learning, like let's say a first stage, which is also artificial intelligence. It's machine talking, machine to machine. We have that since 20 years. And basically, it's the made in Germany, the industry 4.0. But that's on the technological side. And now it is coming in the day-to-day relation with the people, with your clients. Almost all the companies, when you call, they have a bot which is answering. So that's a new technology. And again, I'm not afraid. I'm very curious, and it's part of the risk management. I think we cannot ignore it. But it's very much linked to the competence, as you said. No?
It's part of the risk management. It's part of the risk,
It's part of the risk,
but
yes.
it's also part of
the management,
of the risk
absolutely.
itself. So
Yeah.
it's schizophrenic in a way that it brings us forward, I think.
It brings us forward, but it's also difficult for many people to cope with it if it's not well understood. And again, we come back to what we said for some minutes ago, communication. How do you communicate on that? How do you make people follow you in the decisions? And what will be the type of decisions we will take in the future? So, especially as I see now, these difficult times for very many industries are very difficult because it's very disruptive. And when technology is disruptive, when geopolitical situation is disruptive, how do you position yourself, your industry in this environment? So I think we will see over the next years many industries, losing their position, and many new industries coming up and reinforcing their positions or taking new competitive leadership positions. So AI is part of that, definitively, and I think we are at the start now. So we have to see how it evolves. But the question, Francois, I want to put you in about leadership and leadership in difficult times. How do you operate in your field, in the insurance world? Are you restructuring a lot? Are you changing the companies a lot? How is that working for you?
It's a very good question. In my experience, I've always looked for projects, jobs that had a change element. So as a person, without knowing it, is just looking back, I was looking for something which is something new, something changing, a development. Even when I had to put a company in runoff or manage a runoff, I didn't put it, the shareholder did, but it was a change. So I've always lived through change, and for me, change is a constant. So change is the norm, and it caught back with me because 10, 15 years ago, I've seen that even in very stable insurance groups, change is becoming the norm. So is it a big change or a small change? The pace is different because if you're in a startup, the change is there all the time. And if you're in a big group, the change is not happening all the time. What I have seen and where I've seen failure as well, and I can say it could be mine too, mm-hmm. But you need to bring the people in the change. If the people are not part of the change, like driving somehow the change, you don't need to decide for it, but the drive then is very difficult for the people. Mm. So the person element is so important in the change that if you forget part of it, or but it's always a failure. You never get it right 100%. So there are things you get right, things you get wrong. But unfortunately, a fully stable environment where people have always the same type of work and same type of environment, I don't think is sustainable anymore. No, for sure. No, I mean, my experience is also my personal experience, and also what I see outside me is that the change is the normal. Absolutely, it's the constant change, and we need to change. And I want to change, and I think that I changed also a lot. So that's very positive. That's opportunity. It's not easy, of course, as you said, and you need to take the people with you. But change is, especially now over the latest, let's say, 20 years maybe, it's really the constant normal. What I was more thinking about is that how do we drive that, so I'm not looking for stability. It's not the type of, the aspect to bring in a conversation. But what I have also seen is that sometimes, at least in the technology field where I'm operating, I see companies changing the structure, the organization,
because it has a lot of, it's a positive signal to the outside world. When you as a leader, to initiate the change, a new organization, you show that, I'm fast, I'm adapting to a new strategy, I'm adapting the structure to a new strategy, I'm a doer, I'm a good leader. So, and that's valid. And I'm sure we have to do that every, a couple of years. But what I also feel is that there is another side of that when you start to do that every 12 months, every 18 months.
Yeah.
The signal outside might also be, okay, I'm not sure what I'm doing here. Because what I said it was good for 12 months ago, now I'm coming back and I say, oh, maybe it was not so good. I need to change it again, and again, and again, and again. And I have seen companies doing these changes over the, let's say, past 8 years, as I said, every 12 or 18 months. That's not good, in my opinion.
I agree. It's not good, but we have to differentiate two things here. As there's a leader, you want to show your stakeholders that you're a doer, you get things forward and so on. And then there are the employees who, of course, they're very happy when they have a goal. So you arrive somewhere and you just change something. And say, the target is this, and this is how we're going to do it, and we're going to do it in this competitive environment, and we're going to fight. Yeah, so that there is, try to bring the community, people together. So that's that. Then let's say there's an acquisition that's coming, and then it changes completely everything. And there, it's challenging to know whether you have to redo the Big Bang, or if you want to do the smoothing of the situation, because there's so many. We speak about uncertainty here. There's the geopolitical uncertainty. Am I going to the right market, to the right country, or to the right continent when I'm opening business? And then you consider whether it's the right time or not, and if you have the right competence. That's a big change. But also, there are the people themselves need to be reassured. So the uncertainty, when it touches the workforce, is very, very strong. And then the resistance to change. I found the resistance to change is challenging, but I found that it's much easier when you bring the team and you tell them, we're going to go in this market, in that continent, and this is what we're going to do. And they like that because there's a vision, there's something. They project themselves. Then telling them, oh, you're not going to work with Jack here, you're going to work with Hans here. And it's like, oh, no, I can't do that, So the uncertainty is itself, it's a never-ending challenge to manage.
Absolutely. No, you're right. And, the positive changes of, developing, as you just mentioned, you do an acquisition, you go for new markets, you go for new clients, you go for that. That's a very positive and engaging change.
Yeah.
Because it's something which you develop. Then you have other type of changes where you have to downsize, where you have to step down from a certain market or from a certain industry, or you have to diverse a type of a part of your company. So it's the downsizing, not the developing part. And that is also change, and that needs also to be managed. What I'm trying to say is that if you have a clear strategy and you follow, the organization adapting it to the strategy, then I think it's a very positive one. Whatever the strategy is, whatever the change is. When you are trying to fix problems of your company by changing the organization, which also I see is happening, then I don't think it's the positive thing, because those behaviors or lack of leadership, misalignment of, let's say, the incentives, or whatever problem you have in the company, when you try to fix that, so, I take another reorganization and another reorganization and another reorganization, those problems remains. And those problems, you will find them back in your new organization because they are not disappearing. So that is the aspect I was thinking as negative.
Yeah, it is a negative aspect. It can be positivized somehow,
Yeah.
but then we need to bring the people to, or the team, the organization, towards a better outcome rather than today. So trying to solve all the problems at the same time is very challenging. And sometimes people expect you to, as a leader, that you solve everything at the same time. And the key there is to choose the right symbol.
Yeah, symbols are very important.
The symbol you mentioned
agree.
earlier,
Yeah, I agree. The signal and the symbol and motivating the people. What is the end game? That's extremely important. Now, I am not trying to say that change is not necessary. On the contrary, I think change is necessary. And as you said, very often it's engaging.
Yeah.
And by the way, the people who are embracing the change are also the people you want to work with. And the people who are resisting the change, more of the time you don't want to work with them. So that's clear. But
isn't that a mistake? I don't know. If people are resistant to change, sometimes I find that very frustrating. And they're probably frustrated with me because I try to convince them to change.
Yeah.
So that could create an interface problem. But I'm relentless in that sense, and I don't think there's a recipe.
No, I don't think it is. It's very situation by situation. And basically, I also embrace change because I see more opportunity in change. And like you, I also want to have around me the people embracing the change. But as again, I saw also something in some organizations which is like a fatigue for the change. Because, every signal, if it's the most positive signal you want to give, if it's just repeating very often, it becomes a noise.
Yeah.
So in order to remain a positive signal, a positive message, it has to be, followed by, it has to follow a very clear strategy. And that strategy cannot change, every 12 months. That has to remain. And then we have to adapt because the situations require that you have to adapt. So it's again this balance in embracing change and being fast and being agile and flexible versus not tiring your people in constant changing of the organization. Because also something I have experienced, ironically, the most complex a business is, the more it relies on the informal networks. So with every organizational change, you are breaking those informal. What you said before, you report not to John, you report to I don't know who.
Yeah.
It's breaking an informal structure, which is which created over years. And in complex businesses and complex models, people rely on that informal structure. So if you break it too often, it's tiring up the people. So
it does. I don't think that a reorganization, a big reorganization, if it's too often, I agree with you. I'm not a fan of that. I'm more a fan of fixing the interface. So it doesn't mean that the company has a completely different structure, but it means that the company doesn't look the same. When there's an interface, which is a problem, you can create I'm just going to make it simple here, but you create a department instead of an interface. So you create two more interfaces. Potentially you create two more problems, but at least you've solved the main problem on that day, and the people, you bring them to solve or to optimize the two upcoming interfaces. I find that usually it breaks down the problem. In management, in leadership, sometimes there is this element to break down the problem. I think that breaks down the problem. And the other element is about, preparing the organization. Is not, prepare as early as possible the organization to a potential change in the future that you don't know of yet, but because the uncertainty is there, and you know that we're bound to change, like we agree on, it's better to already create these discussions, this openness, this or the ability for people to follow orders, or it could be process and another element. But it's not the status quo when nothing happens. Is the worst recipe for the change of coming.
Agree on that. I think we all agree on that. Status quo is not the good. Is definitely not the good way. And I think you mentioned you boiled it down to exactly what I think it's important. You have to identify the problem. As you said, you identified an interface which was not working, and you change that, or you fix that. So that, I think, also is a good recipe. At least I try to work like that, trying to go in the depths to identify where the problem comes from and to fix that problem, rather than going for a new organization to fix a problem which probably is just a problem of interface. Yeah. Now I'm simplifying. It's not like it's not as simple as I'm putting it now. But you see what I mean. Identifying the problem and fixing that, I think that's a much more effective way than trying to fix several problems through organizational changes. Which in the end do not fix the problem. So, yeah, that's.
It's a step-by-step process, but it can happen that the big bang is the solution.
Yeah.
It's not me in the negative sense. Although I've seen that when a decision is made, you just communicate the decision. It's just there is no room for discussion, but it cannot be an internal decision. There has to be a decision where stakeholders or the environment influences what the company is doing and the leadership. And then at that time, it's easier for the manager as well, because it's just like it's a bit like in politics. It's not me, it's Europe. It's Brussels. Exactly. You decide. Come on, but here as well.
That's exactly what I mean. I totally agree with you. If a big bang, as in order to catch up or not to catch up, to foresee a disruptive. Whatever things, or either microeconomic or technology, that's key. Yeah. And it's that classical example with Nokia. Nokia not seeing the disruption coming in the telephone world, and they lost completely their leadership because they were not seeing the disruption coming. So, and they would have needed a big bang. Yes. Or the same like Blackberry, which I was such a big fan of Blackberry when I had my Blackberry, and they didn't see the disruption either coming with the touch screen. So they in the end they had to give up their technology, which I think it was extremely good at that time. So yeah, big bang, it's super it's necessary and it's good when you foresee the disruption, or you very fast adapt to the disruption. And then, as you said, you have the people with you, you have the organization, you have the stakeholders. But it has to be, a big bang with being motivated by something, not an internal driven big bang or smaller big bangs, because that I think is what I see as a risk to cope with uncertainty and to cope with difficult times. So I wanted to do the link, to this, to our discussion, management in difficult times.
Yeah. Now it's okay. Well, in the insurance industry, these big banks, I don't see them. Of course, there has been extremely successful companies that just came up out of nowhere and became so successful. And sometimes, if you use technology to become very successful and compete with the big insurance group, it's very nice for a while, and then your technology becomes obsolete, or there's a new one coming up, and then all of a sudden you find yourself into the same situation as your previous targets, or the companies that you were winning against. So for us, it's much more long term. There's no if you have a portfolio, an insurance company will have a portfolio over tens of years, 10, 20, 30, 40, so many years. And then that is a lot of money in there and a lot of contract and relationship that you can't change that from one day to the next. So that will always exist. And there are solutions, but let's keep it simple. So that's why the big bang there is not
It's not
big
very
bang.
often you see it.
It's more, critical element that need to be integrated, and it's integrated in a much larger ecosystem where all the companies that are popping up and going away need to be serviced or used or whatever. In the field of medicine today, there's so many things that are happening that the insurance need to catch up, understand them and catch up. That's the risk management, How much will that cost? How much will that help the population? And understanding. So it's about creating an understanding of the environment. So the uncertainty of the insurer is the day-to-day. Is she going to die today or not? Or is he or she going to have a car accident? Is a car going to be safe or not? Is an electric car safer than a thermic car? It's these elements, and is that going to be much more expensive? So uncertainty happens all the time, and I find that it's so interesting. I can speak. I will stop now, but so that's why leading in difficult times. I think it's more in insurance. It's more being able to link people and tech, link people and the environment, bringing the information on the table, getting as much information as possible.
Wow, which is very much different from what I feel in leading in difficult times. I am thinking when listening to you. Yeah, you're right. Your industry, if I understand it right, you have long-term companies which are there since many, many years, big companies, where you really optimize your risk management, let's put it like that. What I see in my field of activity, that, most of the companies who are now, my competitors, they maybe didn't exist for 10 years ago. So it's another type of dynamic, and of course another type of risk management. And I feel that, the more stable, the big stable companies, even if they maybe have difficulties to be flexible, but they are very successful because that stability has also a value for itself. On the other side, you have all these newcomers who eventually will be are very big and very successful. But it's a completely different type of. It's a different angle of risk management.
It is.
And that's very fascinating, listening to you and putting that in relation with the big banks. I live much more of big banks all the time because it's that in technological disruption. So companies appears and disappears. And also in the existing one, they have this feeling that they have to move and to show that they are moving. But in your case, it's completely different how you manage the risk.
And also the set of legislation on insurance, that's actually insurance law, So there's these contracts, specific contracts, special way of making sure that, because the big ones are systemic, but let's say you're so part of the economic framework of a country or a continent that you need to have a certain set of rules to make sure you remain. Because if you receive, 10 billion euro per year from clients, and all of a sudden you're bankrupt, then where is the money? It's gone. So that it's not.
So it's very regulated.
It's very regulated.
It's very regulated.
It's very. It's about protecting the population and the companies. So that's very important. And when you do every year, there's a report where all the risk management functions and compliance and everything is listed. Then what is the outcome of the assessment? What is the update from last year to this year, and so on? So there are all those reports which I don't know who's reading that, except the very industry, but it creates, a lot of rules. Sometimes it's tedious, but this is the stability that prevents big bang. So just like to say, because of all that, if there was a big bang, then it would either create no value for all those rules and all that protection, or I'm sure that some people would be very, very frightened by that big bang, and therefore the trust that money will come at some point, that the insurer will pay money if there's an accident, then it's going to be gone. So it's about making sure it happens.
But I guess that's a big difference. I mean, it's not the only difference, but I guess it's a big difference in between a regulated business, or let's say, or more regulated business, or a less regulated business. And now as technology, and I really believe, I'm a big believer that technology should not be regulated. You need to have the freedom to develop technology. And that's, I make a break now when I say that sometimes Europe, in my opinion, is failing trying to regulate too much too soon. I'm thinking about AI, which we discussed for some minutes ago. I don't say that it should not be regulated. I'm not a specialist there, but what I feel is that it should not be too much and too soon. You need to leave new technologies to give them the time and the space to evolve, to mature, to get mature. So here we have to be very careful. But normally, as I said, technology should not be regulated, and it is not regulated in order to innovate and to develop. So it's different. It's interesting to see how risk management in a regulated world versus risk management in a non-regulated world appears. And here I see the big bangs much more often, because the consequence of the big bang is not the same.
It's a different universe.
It's a different universe.
So what about technology for insurance companies? So that if you do, this is a super big challenge, because insurance industry is one of the biggest investor in tech, because with no, I mean, not only AI, but everything in terms of tech, it's so big that if there was no regulation, you'd invest billions. I mean, so much money.
You mean in software, or you mean
software, infrastructure, use of AI, being able to connect with client. Let's say, before a client needed a piece of paper, send it to the insurer, need to receive it, file it into a file cabinet or a safe, and it was there. But now everything is electronic.
On platforms.
But it has to be
very
safe, very safe. And because there could be fraud, there could be
cybersecurity is for you very important.
Huge
topic.
Huge.
That's topic. Also for everybody, I think. Huge. For technology companies as well, cybersecurity is extremely important.
We're attacked all the time. We are lived. So some of those attacks are some very clever. Just simply a client. Somebody had access to a client info, knowing that the client was one of our clients and the broker, and then all of a sudden we're receiving requests for reimbursement or things like that. And
cybersecurity, it's definitive a topic, and I think it's every I don't know one single company which would not say that cybersecurity is a very important topic. But unfortunately, not every company has today, at least in my field, where we have a lot of small, mid-sized companies. So it's not the big ones; it's the small, mid-sized ones do not have the means and the know-how to cope with cybersecurity. But that's really something which, in my opinion, it's one of the major risks now, and has to be managed by every single company, regardless how big or how small, and especially for the small ones. I heard in our field, so from smaller companies, which might be my or our customers of mine, who were attacked, and completely their IT system was out of work for several weeks. They could not do payments. They could not do receive orders. They could not dispatch products. So just because it was a cyber attack, even if they thought that they are protected, but it was not sufficient. And this is not one single case. I know it from a cybersecurity consultant explaining to us that this is really happening in real time. So companies are 50 million, 100 million, from one day to the other being completely locked and blocked. Yeah. That could be the disappearance of those companies.
Although there's a lot of money invested also in
yes,
cyber
it's a lot
security.
of money, but you need to know.
A lot of work between collaboration between companies, because no one. I mean, there's like the adversary world of all those that want to attack and all those who want to defend themselves, and that's sometimes these blurred lines. Huh?
Exactly. Yeah.
But to be able to create business continuity, then it's a strong investment.
Absolutely, and that's an investment everybody has to do, and everybody has to be aware of. And unfortunately, I don't think that, again, depending on the company and the field, but for the small, mid-sized ones, it's like with the risk of the insurance, you don't believe that you will be sick. So you might say, well, I don't need an insurance now because I'm young and healthy. And then you don't take the insurance, or you don't do, as a company, the investment which is required to protect yourself and your business.
There was like hospitals. A lot of hospitals, they thought, nobody's going to attack an hospital. Yeah, well,
they are.
They are, yeah.
Exactly.
So it's everywhere. As long as you can ransom something, and it's just like happening. There was this hype, I think it's 12, 15 years ago, about cyber insurance. We're like, okay, this is next level of premium, and this is a growth area. And it could have been, but their risk management, it's not about only the company that says, I'm going to be attacked. Now it's different. It's like, I'm an insurer. I'm going to say, I'll take a bit of money, and if there's an attack to that company, I will pay. Yeah, but if the company doesn't do what it needs to do, or if I don't trust it, or if then you
it's a risky business for you as an insurer. It's too risky. Yeah.
It's too risky. So lots of companies, they get frustrated. The large ones, they cover themselves, partly, of course. Then at least they have a bit of money that is in their own insurance company, or that they put aside to cover for those risks. But it's a very, very difficult risk to assess.
It's a very difficult risk, yeah. And because, we don't understand it. I think that's why it became so difficult. Yeah. Because it's difficult to understand it, and you are also against criminals and criminal leagues, which are so specialized in doing cyber attacks. So it's difficult to cope with that type of...
And it changes all the time. So you can understand today, but tomorrow there's something happening. And AI, for instance, must have been, giving so many opportunities for hackers, but of course for defense mechanism. And I guess the AI tools, sometimes they used to program attacks and defense mechanism, which is a bit funny. But, the thing there, I think, in cyber is to be up to speed with what's going on.
What's going on? Yeah. And to invest the money, the right amount of money, and to invest it in the right place to try to protect yourself as much as possible.
Another risk is we didn't address today, but and it could be linked. It is linked, but climate change. And it is reality, and then COVID created an increased awareness of what it can mean for the population and where it can hit the population, or the global population in case of COVID. But there are some other much more localized impacts of climate change that impact risk management. I see that from insurance point of view for the industry.
For us, in technology, that's an opportunity, because it's a lot of new technology which is developing now in order to cope with the climate change. And I think it can be an innovation driver definitive. It's on the positive side. So it is a risk for sure, but as a technology provider, it's a very big opportunity because it's so much innovation which can be brought, and it is brought today, linked to environment, to sustainability, to recycling, the whole recycling economy, the sharing economy. So new business models,
New big banks.
new big banks in that, but very positive ones, because new technology, new business models, new ways of doing business, that's all very positive. That's opportunity for the people, it's opportunity for the companies, and it's a little bit a pity seeing that these ESG topics are not a priority anymore for very many companies. At least we don't talk so much about that. Maybe we talked too much about that for some years ago, so maybe it's a correction. I don't know. But what I see now, I just saw this morning a report about priorities in the board, which is the latest report. It's about 2025. And on the top 10 priorities of the board, ESG is on the point number 10. So it's still maybe in the top 10 if you want, but it's the number 10. So maybe it's a correction, maybe it's more than a correction, and then it's not good, because as I said before, I see it from the technology point of view. I see it as an opportunity of innovation and of new business models and of new way of doing business.
I think it is. It's also a danger because it changed for established companies. It could change completely their value chain. If your provider uses in certain tech, you use, I don't know what, iron or tungsten or whatever, and then next you need to use rare earth and that kind of metal or half metal or whatever it is. It's also something which changes completely. If you have providers, countries you work with, technology embedded into your value chain that uses that kind of metal, but you have to change that. So it has big implication as well.
Big implications, yeah. I mean, it's a driver of innovation, but of course, as I said, we said previously that, in all these type of big banks, some companies, will emerge, or some will develop and some will fall. So, or some will disappear. So yes, it's risk and opportunity depending on what side of the bridge you are. So.
It's very interesting. Very curious about what the future will give us.
Yeah, me too. I'm optimist in the sense that I believe in humanity. I believe that we will find our way. A little bit more pessimist when it comes to tomorrow. So not on the long term, but on the short, mid-term. A little bit afraid or concerned about what's happening in Europe and how we will manage or not to position ourselves in between, East and West, attacking us from both sides. Where do we stay? How do we emerge strong from this battle? But yes, I think long term we will find good solutions.
Yeah, I think so too. I think at the end of the day, it's money that drives, and of course ethics and so on. So all the elements, but it's the way we are here is very open economy. So we accept a lot and we provide a lot. So it's about integration. It's about it's about diversity, because if you're not diverse, you cannot say that you can do business with other cultures and other continents and so on. So it's a mix of. I think that we have the right mix, the right ecosystem here to be successful. Maybe not to be dominant, but to be very successful. To have champion of industry, to have champion companies that will be working according to what we want. So it's about ethics, it's about democracy, it's about integration and values. Yeah. And the competition is healthy. The challenges are healthy.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. I think also we are maybe in the best spot of the humanity today. really believing in values and shaping everything we do around values. I think it's a risk that other parts of the world are not seeing values as the main driver, are seeing something else as the main drivers, domination, money, whatever, but not necessarily the values. That's a risk, and I think it's important to see how can we defend, what we are standing for. And I'm thinking now Europe, generally speaking, can we defend that? Can we stand for that? How will we succeed in defending our values?
That's I think that's the questions for the politics. I think in business we have our own environment. There's a lot of governance, a lot of competence, a lot of opportunities that we can use. This is difficult times. That's very clear. We need to be aware of that and use that sometimes to our advantage and sometimes to accept that we can't solve all the problems.
No,
it's also business leadership to say that I can do, that I can't do. And I think that we have a good level here. In one of your podcasts, you speak about Europe as a mosaic. I see that as an opportunity, as a risk as well, where the variety of, Europe is not one. It's plenty of little environment that try to work together and have some common understanding and common law, but there's always competition. It's healthy competition.
It's
a political competition there.
It's a healthy one.
There is also in business the environment. There are laws. We can sell in all the markets in Europe, and all the market can sell in any country.
That's a big advantage, yeah.
With challenges, sometimes unfair or super annoying, and we find very frustrated. We are very frustrated, but at least there's an environment. There is competition, and the more we can navigate the uncertainty, the better we can compete. So understanding diversity, understanding differences, being able to master that creates, I believe, a competitive advantage for us.
I totally agree with you. Coming back, to what we said with Europe being a mosaic of everything, but we had something in common. There is a set of values, and we share those values, and that is what is bringing us together. And that's why, as you said, the competition is healthy, the environment is healthy, the ecosystem is healthy. So we have to fight to keep that in this way.
Yeah.